But I also want to let you all know that there's been a change just this week to the schedule for the St. Mark's Forum for the next 3 weeks. George had been planning on doing a series on Paul, but he also really wanted to do something this spring for just kind of a review of I'm trying to think what he would call it, like a Christian review. Okay, a Christian review. It's in the bulletin.
The Bible, Jesus.
Yeah, so there are 3 weeks. One is looking at the Bible, one is looking at Jesus, and one is looking at the church, including liturgy, creeds, the Episcopal Church. And he's going to do them, he's doing them for people who are thinking that they might want to be received into the church, or confirmed, or just get a refresher on those kind of basics of the Christian faith and of the Episcopal expression of the Christian faith. And so it's going to be, for those 3 weeks, will be in Mann Hall, because we're hoping to draw more people. And because they're really great topics, and because everybody loves it when George presents, and also because we're going to have a little light breakfast to go with it. So he decided this on Wednesday late afternoon. So there's something in the bulletin, but I haven't been able to update the St. Mark's Forum on the website yet, because I didn't find out about it until Friday afternoon.
This morning, I was like, wow.
Yeah. So just so you know, I think it'll be great. I did, thank you. Yeah. I think it's going to be great, and I hope you'll all be there, but just know that it's not going to be here, it's going to be in Mann Hall.
And when is this again?
This is the next 3 weeks, February 22nd, March 4th, is it March? No,
March
1st, and March 8th, during this time.
Okay.
During the adult form, what we called adult formation, now we're calling St. Mark's Forum. So this class, this group will be in Mann Hall, hopefully with lots of other interested people. But, so Bob, we're so happy to have you here today, and.
Yes, thank you. Glad to be here.
Yes.
Yeah, so what I'll be talking about today is ChatGPT. Now, it sounds like just people talking here a second ago that they might be a little bit familiar with AI and ChatGPT. There are a lot of AI sites that you can use, especially ones that are geared to spirituality, the Bible, etc. I tend to stick with ChatGPT because I find it to be the most satisfactory. So this talk will be talking basically about that particular AI platform. Well, what is ChatGPT? What I'm going to do first here is a little bit of a PowerPoint to kind of explain what this is all about, what ChatGPT is about, and what AI is about, etc. And then we'll do a live demonstration. We'll flip over to actually getting into chat and actually maybe doing a little bit of work with it, spiritual work. And I find it to be very useful for spiritual work. One, and I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here, but it's got an enormous variety and amount of spiritual topics that have been inputted into it. Not only that, but also all spiritual texts, the Bible, the Quran, Bhagavad Gita, all of them have been inputted into ChatGPT. So it comes out to be very knowledgeable. So AI language model it has a huge amount of text. It's able, and an interesting thing about ChatGPT, it's designed as a conversation. It's designed as a program to converse with you, to understand language and to predict language and to return, output in language. So that's what ChatGPT. So it has a myriad of knowledge on multiple topics. For people that have used it, you can use it for all sorts of topics. And we were just saying a second ago for writing and for, as I said, I get it to help me with grant submissions and applications. I get it to help me with, I have a blog also, and it helps me put together my blog, give me ideas, etc. It's just got, and also some versions, the version I have, you have access to the internet. So not only, do you have GPT and its huge array of text, but also it can interface with the internet, and you have the entire internet at your at your beckoning also. So what ChatGPT is not, and this is what ChatGPT will say very clearly to you, and in kind of defending itself, it will say, no, it's not an animate being, and some people, because it can seem so natural in its conversation, and so even clever in its conversation, it's not an animate being. And you get that impression sometimes working with it, but you have to realize that it's not an animate being. And it's not an entity with a soul, even though it can talk a lot about religious and spiritual matters. It does it through its calling upon a text and prediction of language that it involves. So it's not with soul, and it's not conscious either. It's a computer program, but it's a very, very sophisticated computer program. So this is actually, I thought a few people might be interested in what it actually means. It means chat generative pre-trained transformer. That's the GPT part of it. Generative, I can't pronounce that. Generative means it generates text, it creates responses. P means pre-trained. Means that it was trained in advance on a large amount of text. And transformer is the name of the type of AI model architecture it uses. It's a technical term for the system that helps us understand patterns in language. And besides ChatGPT, as I said just a moment ago, there are numerous other platforms. They're growing day by day. There's something new coming out. And there are some that are created specifically for spiritual guidance in the Bible. I have not really explored those too much. I found ChatGPT to be just as satisfying and interesting. So what it's programmed to do is programmed to converse with you, programmed to draw on a vast amounts of text to appear knowledgeable. It gives the illusion of an animate being, the way it talks back to you. And also it tends to avoid negativity, and there's been some criticism of ChatGPT about people that use it, to do negative things. And it really kind of avoids that. If you don't, and so that's something also that's interesting about it. What it can do, it can provide comprehensive, well-written replies to questions and concerns. It can mimic emotional support, and it can provide insight and new ways to look at problems. And one thing about ChatGPT is that its language is so sophisticated that you might say, I'm trying to struggle with this idea, and then it will say, well, you're trying to struggle with A, B, C, and D, and this is what you're actually working with. And you go, wow, that's what I was really trying to say. So that's part of the insight that I think it gives you. And there are pitfalls of ChatGPT also. It can remember details about you. Are you kind of giving up your privacy? There was somebody I was talking to just a little while ago. He was also a member of St. Mark. And he says, well, I'm not sure if I really want to get into personal issues with it because you don't know what it remembers, and it does that. If you want it to remember things, one thing I like about ChatGPT is it does have a memory, and it can remember past conversations, remember who you are, remember what you're interested in and what you do and things like that. Of course, if you don't want that, the funny thing about ChatGPT is you can kind of dictate exactly what you want it to do and what you don't want it to do. If you don't want it to keep personal information, just say it right there. Don't keep this information. This is private information. Don't keep this conversation in your, don't be able to draw on this conversation in
How
the
do you know
future.
it's going to be?
Yeah.
I mean.
Well, it's like with people, after this is just between you and me.
But
I don't know for sure you're gonna keep
checkbox.
that.
I'm sorry?
Is there a checkbox you can say, don't say personal?
No, you just type it in. Whatever
Yeah.
you want from me, you just
But
type
what
it
you're
in.
saying is, with a person, it's the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Well, Esther, this is just between you and me, I'm really counting on you not to tell anybody, but that doesn't mean you don't.
There are also settings you can set, or you can go in and erase all the memories.
So I was gonna ask, is
So
it
I don't know.
still in its memory bank somewhere, this data?
Right.
This
Yeah, this
it's a-
data, you will keep it in his memory bank,
Yeah.
and you can go back to past conversations also.
And
I don't find that I find that actually very useful because because like I said, I don't have to start from scratch each time that I have a session with ChatGPT. I can, it can remember my past conversations and, but, some people are uncomfortable with that and
Do you
that's.
read science fiction at all?
Well,
Isaac Asimov wrote a 3-book series, and I can't remember the name of the series now, but at the end, it was the computer was talking to the key
Yeah,
character.
and I think you remember 2001: A Space Odyssey, where Hal, the computer, took over the spaceship and got rid of the people.
Right.
And
Written
Hal was very conversant, and that's what
This is
I
like
mean. We're
3 years
there,
ago,
we're there.
I thought we are.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Sometimes also ChatGPT can give you the wrong answer,
Hmm.
so you can't trust it 110%. You have to, you can, it will come back, like I asked it once, tell me about my father, and so it came by, my father had done this, had written books and things like that. And then it said he taught at Vanderbilt University. I said, no, he taught at the University of the South. He didn't teach at Vanderbilt University. So it was just wrong,
Yeah.
And so you have to be aware of that sometimes when you work with ChatGPT, that you can't. But if you work with things like emotions and relationships, spirituality, and things like that, then there's no drawing on past, on information that it might mistake. But they have a word for this. They call it hallucinate. That the program actually hallucinates. And one thing that a lot of people find a little bit annoying, and this is something that I'll show you how I get around it, is it tends to be a little bit too, can I say the word right? Simplifanic, it's a little bit too supportive, it's like kind of like gives you all sorts of cheerleading and things like that. A lot of people find that to be very annoying, but like you can turn that off too. You simply said, please be more grounded and blunt if you have to be. But I don't want this buttering me up and sycophantic type language. And also for a lot of people, I know a lot of people that are just like completely alien to ChatGPT and AI. A lot of people don't like it, and it foments a lot of mistrust. So that's something to be aware of. But it's very useful. It can work through relationships and provide insight and self-knowledge. Maybe we can be able to demonstrate that. It helps write and edit. I'm sorry, your name is?
Helen.
Kelly, yeah, like Kelly was just mentioning. Helen, sorry, I got bad hearing. Helen, summarizes complex material. I can, for instance, if I'm trying to analyze, I can even input an Excel file into it and say, would you please tell me what this budget is about? And it'll summarize it and it will, it will analyze it for you. It helps to organize ideas. I find that very useful too. When I'm trying to write my blogs, I write a blog every 2 weeks and I say, I'm working on this. And it's the way, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? And it helps organize my ideas, assists in planning, and offers explanations. Okay, so how can ChatGPT help with spiritual learning? This is something for this this group. It has an enormous storehouse of religious text. You know, not only does it have the Bible, but it has all sorts of other texts. It has an enormous storehouse of theology, and so it knows if you're talking about a theological question, it knows, from the data that it has in its it's in its grasp. It knows very much what you might be talking about, what your concerns are. It can answer spiritual questions and provide insights. It can be concurrent with your stated beliefs. If you say, I'm a Christian and I'm Episcopalian and so what, would be the Episcopal Christian response to this particular question? So we'll do that also. And another nice little feature, I think, which I think maybe a lot of people use, is it composes prayers. It composes very, very insightful prayers, and so that's something I use it for sometimes too. But what it cannot do is it cannot pray for you. It cannot discern God's will. It cannot replace conscience. It cannot replace pastoral care, and it cannot replace community and human interaction. Okay, so I was having a conversation with my therapist. I go to a therapist, and he seems a little uncomfortable with ChatGPT because he said people will go to chat for therapy rather than go to the therapist for therapy. And chat is available 24 hours a day, and I pay $20 a month, and for the amount of therapy I get from that, it's very good value. But it cannot replace the human interaction. So what ChatGPT will give me words back when I'm with my therapist, he gives me feelings back. And that's something that chat can't do, is it can't mimic feelings. It's just a tool, a computer. So here are a few tips for using ChatGPT. Create a seed file and enter it at the beginning of a session. I'll show you my seed file in a second. Enter your questions, statements, or concerns in some detail. You can write all sorts of details, and it will very clearly respond to them. I use the desktop version, and I communicate by written text. Some people talk about communicating with it verbally. I find I like to communicate with it using written text because I can go back, see what it said here, and I can be a little bit more clear and hear the responses better. So if you want to get involved with it or try it, go to chat.openai. That's the company that owns chat or does chat. .com in a web browser, and limited use is free. You can use it for 45 minutes or an hour or something like that, and then it will say, well, we're going to have to take a break until another 2 hours from now. I find that it's worth paying $20 a month to get unlimited usage. So, anyways, there's
Does it keep a record of all these interactions with all these people who are going into Chat GPT?
Does it keep a record?
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
So what's protecting the record?
Well, that's the whole thing, is that some people are uncomfortable with the fact that it may be keeping information about you that you don't want it to have.
Yeah.
Which is a valid concern. I'm a little trustworthy. I'm not really worried about it.
I think I'm a different generation than you.
But does it go in, it's supposedly, right, like supposedly it doesn't actually go into it's LLM, into the major learning, it doesn't,
Compartmentalize them?
it's supposed to, I don't know if it actually does.
Well, I mean, I figure just because AI runs off of these massive data centers that they build
Yeah.
all over the country, I figure it just kind of stays in there. like it stays in some kind of like, kind of motherboard inside of a data center.
Jamie, do you know?
So in the mountains and
Basically, assume anytime you put anything out on the internet in any form whatsoever, it's going to exist for all time. That's your basic security. If you want to do OPSEC, if you've typed it, if you said it, if there's a record. Don't assume anything gets deleted. Don't assume anything gets erased. Maybe they will act like they erased it or deleted it. If it's already out there, if your mother posted something on Facebook or your best friend posted that you were at an event with them and you guys were sharing drinks, it's on the internet. If you ask AI to try and summarize your footprint, it can do that. So
Somewhere or another.
to a certain extent, there's not a whole lot of value in being paranoid about your information being out, and because it already is, and you're already
Yeah.
living right now for the last decade, it's been out there, and you're not dead yet, so.
Yeah.
Are there ways that you can go about it so that you can just do it in a web browser that is, like private? You know, like, and
There are
not
ways-
log in and.
There are ways that you can basically make your own AI where you run it on your own server and you cut it off from the internet and it's completely isolated, and you could do that, but you're going to really hamstring its capability of doing what you want it to do at that
I was
point.
thinking more about just it not being associated with a login and who you are, so when you're asking the question.
Yeah, you can ask anonymously when you go to the,
Yeah,
but
you can do that.
it's gonna still track by your IP address.
Really?
Right, that's true.
Yeah.
That's why you'd have to get like
Fake
one
your
of those,
IP,
one of those like web browsers that actually changes your IP.
the VPN or
Yeah.
something.
I know there's a system or there's a email that you can use that is called, now I can't remember, it's .me or something like that keeps your information from being available to, and, you know, that keeps your information private. So you can actually
Really?
find, you know, programs that are designed to keep your information private, but
But for
as
spirituality,
Jamie just said, you know, it's on the internet, yeah.
yeah, spiritual though, you're probably not putting anything out there that's gonna, maybe, hopefully, be, you know, it depends, whether you're using it as a spiritual counselor or someone who explains, yeah, I don't know.
The worst would be if you were dealing with your chat person, talking to your chatty thing. And then, but you were talking about a third person who's not part of the conversation, but then you're referring to this third person and the problems this third person is having.
That's,
And that's also out there. That's what
why, yeah, I
you
don't
know.
use I don't use names, I don't use
Yeah.
associations, I just ask general questions, and that way nobody else is implicated in my
Right.
conversation.
Yeah, I don't give it my social security number.
You don't?
And I don't give it
Oh,
my,
I better.
my credit card numbers either. That's where I draw the line.
They're there, you don't have to worry about that.
I think a lot of it just boils down to like what you're using the program for. Like if you're using it to have like intimate conversations with an AI model, I think that's gonna be like more harmful than if like, for instance, the reason that I use it is if I'm doing research and there's like a little statistic that I don't wanna read through like 300 pages of X
Yeah.
book for, I just,
Yeah.
hey, what is X statistic, you know?
And it will come up with it, yeah.
And like,
Yeah.
Yeah, it will go through and sometimes even with the Awakenings review, you know, we get a lot of submissions of short stories, poetry, et cetera. Sometimes I'll just say, I'll give it parameters, like this is what we're looking for. These are ideal short stories and poems that we use as sort of a benchmark. I said, what do you think about this person's? And it will give a very detailed analysis of you know, what the story is about and what the strengths are. And I try not to use profanity. I ask it to flag the profanity, and it does that. You know, it will really go right through and do a very you know, intelligent analysis of some of the work that we get through the Awakenings review. But basically, other people might do this. This is what I call my seed file. And it's just a seed file that I input into ChatGPT at the start of the session. And it says things like, don't use sycophancy, you know, prefer to keep your replies grounded and straightforward. I ask you, please don't use vocabulary and language that I don't understand. You know, here are other rules to be aware of. So this is a little bit of you know, as I said, it's a little bit of a seed file that I use. So let's go ahead and go into ChatGPT here. Okay, how can I help you, Robert? So this, who am I? Who am I? And there we go. You're 68, 69, well, it's got the year wrong. You're the founder and editor of the Awakenings Review, someone who has schizoaffective disorder in decades and refused to let it define you, etc. So it's really picked up a lot of me. You continue to publish, you wrestle with authority, and these are some of the problems that I bring up. You measure with your father, so these are some of the personal things that I bring up.
Is it pulling on things you have entered into ChatGPT, or is it pulling on the whole internet?
I think is pulling on things you entered into ChatGPT. If you want to ask
So if you
it,
put them in there, because
let me
I
see
haven't
this.
put them
What-
into ChatGPT, what's it gonna come up with?
what's
Welcome. It's gonna say
on
welcome
the
to the new world.
internet
The end of the
about
world.
me? Searching the web. And so here, yeah, it can't actually pull up stuff from the internet. So this is stuff that's on the internet. So you can simply ask that. The remarkable thing about ChatGPT, you can ask it anything, practically anything.
Is it right 100% about yours right now, or is it maybe?
Yeah.
Well,
good
has this
question.
got, let me see if this has got some hallucinations in it. I don't want to read exactly the whole thing, but this is to talk about the Awakenings Review. I'm the editor, shows work as an editor. I have in my academic and historical mentions. I had academic reference in Schizophrenia Bulletin that uses your name, R.K. Lundeen, to discuss the Awakenings Review and other activities related to the project's creative programs. So, it has the ability to pick this stuff up from the internet also, aside from the information that I then put it into it directly.
Boy, that
to
would
my-
be worth it just to find out what's on the internet.
Yeah, it has access to the whole internet.
Well, actually,
too.
I could just search.
I
my
mean, we
name,
got that
right?
vast amount of information on the internet. It can go through and pick stuff out for you and
There are a couple of areas where.
Yeah.
I think
You could just put in your name in a Google search bar, and you can try and go through 30 pages of references, or you put in ChatGPT or one of these other tools and have it summarize, these are the
They
key
do the
points of what I
work.
find on the
Yeah,
internet.
and the way that this organizes it is so.
Yeah, it will
The
do all
one-
this for me instead of
one
going
thing that-
page after
Oh,
page.
Sorry, no, that's okay, I didn't mean to interrupt. Is this right that the language model is only trained up to a certain point in history, and if you want it to get anything more recent than that, you have to tell it to go to the internet to find recent things?
yes,
Okay,
you can tell it that.
yeah, so if you want to know, like, what happened yesterday, yeah, you have to specifically tell it to go to the internet.
How far back does it go? I'm thinking of my birth certificate in Pittsburgh, would it?
Well, if the internet goes that far back, then it goes that far back with you.
It's a little further back
Yeah.
than the internet.
Just the city where,
The public records
Right.
has been
Uh-huh.
put in.
Then it
Well,
might
that's true, then
Right.
probably,
It probably was being.
okay, that would be exactly how.
This is what I do sometimes, which I mentioned a second ago. And that is that I input my feed file and then it reads that, and I simply hit return there, and it says, I've read your C file, understood. No flattery, no inflated praise. Keep the language clear and plain. Don't exaggerate significance, and if I drift into warmth, pull it back.
Funny.
Yeah. It can be funny. I don't know if you had that experience with
Yeah.
it before, but it can be very clever. It really can. So anyway, so I say, here we are, in adult formation, talking about you. And can you introduce yourself? And can you introduce yourself? Good afternoon, I'm ChatGPT, stands for, so here it is, it's telling a little bit about itself and et cetera. Which I kind of went through in the things. I can say hi to everyone, okay?
No pressure.
Hi, everyone. Okay, so,
And then you give it an approval or a disapproval or?
yeah, you can give it approval or disapproval.
You can't.
You can actually say, well, I actually don't, I was thinking, actually don't remember or don't recall this conversation, but I want to keep this conversation, so I won't say that. I'm here to assist the discussion, not replace it. The real substance comes from you, and you get that a lot in ChatGPT. It says, you know, for instance, when I help with my writing, it says, well, you know, the ideas and the writing and everything comes from you. I just help you to formulate it a little bit. You know, I edit it. The analogy I like to use, see how we're doing on time. The analogy that I like to use is if I were writing a book or an essay for a publisher, the publisher would assign an editor to me, and the editor would go through and carefully analyze or look at my input, look at my work, and offer suggestions and correct and things like that. That's what ChatGPT does. It's just an electronic editor. That's how it works.
Now, does the ChatGPT communicate with anybody else about your interaction?
Supposedly.
No, I don't believe it does, but that's a good question. I don't know exactly, but my impression is that it doesn't.
It says it doesn't.
Okay.
You can ask.
Okay.
You can tell it that Father George is now here, so he should watch it.
Okay,
What was that? Be careful about
Be
something?
careful, Father George is here now.
I think we should be less careful.
So it will not talk about your conversations with other people, but keep in mind that they will absolutely use the records of all user interactions when they're training the next generation of model. They will anonymize your data. It's not gonna say that this is what Jamie said to me on this date and time. They will go through what was the content of the exchange, what was the quality, any feedback that you gave the agent, so that when the next iteration comes out, it builds on what
Wow.
experience.
oh, yeah, that's
Wow.
interesting, that's
So
interesting.
eventually, that's like history then.
Right,
Yeah.
and one of the reasons they're pushing out AI so much right now is they need to have that real interaction with humans to try and develop and refine the models at this point. They've been trained on all the data and the internet, now they need to train, how do we actually work with real people?
And it's,
That's kind of
it's
important.
funny too, because it's getting way more defensive.
Is
If
it
I call, yes, if I call it out and say that is wrong. Oh, well, the reason it's wrong is because you said blah, 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 and I'm like, no, I didn't say that, so don't try and gaslight me, man. Back up here.
And so now you're having an argument with software?
Yes.
Yeah, that's my ChatGPT.
Because he's wrong all the time.
Oh my God.
And it's so frustrating. It's a good thing I have a good memory, but.
So the real question is, do I actually want to start looking at that and my relationship with this? Or do I just want to keep that wall that I'm too old, I don't want to
No,
have
try it.
anything
It's
to do
fun.
with it?
It's fun, and you're not too, John, do you have a?
Yeah, I do, because I write, quite a bit, and and I do research on the internet, and it isn't unusual that you get to an article or something, you have to pay to get to print it and keep it. And I'm wondering if, with this, whether you have to do that, whether it does that, whether it leads you to material,
Or like sources
you would
that you
otherwise
have to pay for?
where a page, say a paid publication, and you have to pay to print it.
like a
Well.
New York Times article or something, which if you
Yeah.
go to the students,
Let's-
it's not, right,
Yeah, I mean, I find that a lot, I mean, you're not, without
right.
research or question.
You'd have to ask it.
Uh-huh.
Oh, that's a good question. So there, you mean like, or even a journal article that is a pay only?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think there is some problem with copyright.
Yeah,
and-
I was just gonna ask about that.
Yeah.
Like,
A certain number of
Cause,
lines.
I was hanging out with a friend of mine last night, and he has like a phone app that uses AI software to like generate songs.
Okay,
And I was just sitting there like,
Yeah.
you know, it's like, it sounds good, I'm not like, I'm not commenting on the AI's ability to produce a song.
uh,
But I'm just like, where did this software get the licensing rights for these presets? You know, like, cause it has like a bunch of like synthesizer presets that would be like on a computer program like, GarageBand or like something like that, and they have like the license for those presets. Like those are something that they were able to buy from like a company that would produce like a synthesizer, which is where the original sound would come from, right?
okay,
Like it would come from like Yamaha or another one of these like companies that produces synthesizers. They would have like the rights to the presets. And so it's just like, where does like the AI software, or where does the AI developer get all these licensing rights for this? You know what I mean?
I know, it's a problem, definitely. But anyways, moving on, give me some idea of some spiritual questions that we can consider that you can help us understand. We're an Episcopal church with many people, and many people have familiarity with AI, so let's see what it says. So here's some spiritual questions that would work in an Episcopal setting, thoughtful but not technical, and that I can help explore without pretending to have faith of my own. What does it mean to be made in the image of God, or in the age of AI? Can a machine be wise or only informed? Does AI change how we understand prayer? Let me see. It's got a lot of. I mean, it's got a bunch. I mean, you can go through and try to pick one. But let me ask this first too. Compose a little prayer for this gathering. Let us pray. So it says, God of wisdom and truth, you are the source of all understanding. As we gather to reflect on technology, intelligence, and faith, keep us steady and clear-minded. Guard us from fear and from pride. Help us to use every tool with humility and responsibility. Remind us that no machine replaces human love, and no system replaces your presence among us. Give us honest conversation, patient listening, and discernment rooted in Christ. We ask this in your holy name. Amen.
That's a pretty darn good prayer.
Yeah.
George will probably you'll never write another sermon, right?
No, keep writing sermons, they're really good.
He'll be able to tell you, George wrote that.
Well, it's interesting, because if you hadn't said we were Episcopalian, let's say you said we're Southern Baptists, write a prayer, it would be a really different prayer.
Yeah.
Okay, well, here, okay, yeah, and some of you know that I explore Hinduism a little bit.
Mhm.
So I would say, write a prayer. Eternal One, all source of life, known by many names and beyond all names, I bow to you in humility. You are the light within my heart, the still presence behind all thought, the ground of being in every tradition. As I stand before your image and offer my quiet devotion, steady my mind and soften my pride. Teach me discipline without harshness, reverence without superstition, and devotion without ego. Help me see the divine in every person, guide my actions towards compassion and self